Okay, it appears that we are now streaming live.
We are live.
Thank you. Today is Monday, June 29th, 2020, and I would like to call to order the Committee on Education, and the time is 1:04 p.m. This meeting will be remote teleconference. And the first item on the agenda is chairperson's roll call. To ease the process, I will go ahead and state everybody that is at the meeting. We have Councilman Jimmy Hughes, our clerk Valencia Amaro. We have Councilman Julius Oliver. We have CEO of the Youngstown City School District, Justin Jennings, and with him we have AJ Janetti, the treasurer and CFO of the Youngstown City School District. We have Councilwoman Samantha Turner, Councilwoman Anita Davis, and Rick Deek, our IT. And the next item on the agenda is new business. And under new business, we are going to receive an update on the Youngstown City School Renewal Levy via CEO Justin Jennings. Justin, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself and just give us an update and let us know what's going on regarding the importance of renewing the levy and having it on the ballot.
So right now, the levy is in the board control. It was on the, let me go back. About 2 weeks ago, I made a statement in the newspaper about the levy, or a letter to the board about the levy. So as a CEO, I have a lot of direction and I have a lot of power, but the one thing that I don't have power to is to put a levy on the ballot or the sale or the acquisition of any property. So that is still in the purview of the board. So we asked the board last year to put this on the ballot in order to have a levy. This levy is a renewal levy. It's not a new levy. So for the last four times, the levy has been renewed. The levy has been renewed. So this will be the last time. This will be the last time in that cycle of the levy. The levy. Yeah, the levy would levy $5.3 million over the next each year for the next 3 years. So it comes out to 4 years. So it comes out to about $20,000. This levy is emergency levy that we use for our regular operating expenses. It's not for any property or anything like that.
Councilman Oliver.
Thank you for joining us, CEO. What's in danger of being lost to the school systems if this levy doesn't get put on the ballot?
This levy is a levy that can be used for anything. It's emergency. So it could be books, it could be busing, it could be personnel, it could be anything. I keep looking at my treasurer because if I say something wrong, I expect him to kick me. But yeah, so this levy can be used for any of those. It's an emergency levy for operations and everything else.
So just a direct follow-up, Chair.
Councilman Oliver.
So I know we've had, great success in our sports programming and other things like that. Would any of those things be in danger of going away if this levy doesn't get on the ballot?
If this levy doesn't get on the ballot, we're going to have to cut away $20 million over the next 4 years. So that, like I said, that's everything will be open for cuts. That could be, busing, that could be athletics, it could be purchasing books, it could be purchasing other things that, we won't have the money for that.
One last direct follow-up.
Go ahead, Councilman Oliver.
Mr. Jennings, so is there any benefit or good reason why this levy wouldn't be put on the ballot?
No, not at all. Not at all. The timing and how long it's taken is just unfortunate, but it needs to be on. And I think that I've been pretty clear, and you know me very well. I'm a straight shooter. This is strictly political. It has nothing to do with what's going on. It's a House Bill 70 per se issue, but it's strictly a control issue. It has nothing to do with anything except that, because this is a standard, like I said, it's a standard emergency operating levy that has been passed the last 4 times that this went through. And there wasn't even any issue before putting it on the ballot before pre House Bill 70 and CEO.
Thank you, I agree.
CEO Jennings, I just have a quick question as well. Other than potentially losing the funding if this levy is not put on the, on the ballot for residents to vote upon, is the school system having any other, funding being taken away? Is there a decrease that's expected because of state funding or federal funding?
Well, this last year for our last two fiscal payments from the state, we lost about $863,000, and that's just from COVID and lack of the taxes and everything that was shut down because of COVID. So next year we're expecting a bigger cut than that. So definitely there's going to be more cuts. We don't know what those are right now. The governor will announce those probably in the next month or month and a half, where we would know what those cuts are. So on top of the 800,000 we already lost, if we lose this other basically $20 million, or we can just say $5 million for the next cycle, and then we're going to even lose more on top of that. So we are, and I'm not saying this because I could care less whether people are Democrat or Republican at this point, but we're lucky that we have a governor, regardless of who he is, who's really focused on equity. Because if we would have done what other states are doing based on how they cut, our governor actually cut on equity. He cut based on the poverty level and those different things in our district, which allowed us to only lose $800,000. But we could have been in a situation where we lost about $3 or $4 million based on per pupil funding and different things like that. But luckily we have a governor who's actually focused and looking at equity.
And I'm sorry, one more question, and then I believe Councilman Turner had a question as well. I believe it was last week maybe, or the week previous, the school board met regarding the levy. Where are they with that? Like, where did conversations leave off?
They met last week, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at AJ because he was at the meeting. They met last week, and I think it was tabled again, right?
Correct.
Yeah, it was tabled again. Now they met, and actually, to my knowledge, it was on the table for a vote, but then it got tabled.
Okay, Councilwoman Turner.
Thank you, through the chair. So just to be clear, we had an $860,000 cut due to COVID this year. If the levy doesn't go through, we'll lose $5 million, and this is in addition to the deficit that the school district is already in.
Correct. We would lose a deficit of $5 million a year for the next 4 years, which is what it would be slated out to be. But you also have to understand, once this levy does not get on a ballot or is not passed, if we want to do another levy, we would have to do a new levy, and that means it's going to be more. And anybody who knows anything about levies, once you lose one, and to put one back on the ballot is next to impossible. I want to even throw the number. It's less than 17% success rate on a new levy after it had not been renewed previously, because it ends up being more than what it would have been originally. Did I answer your question?
So no, so does the school board the school district currently operating at a deficit?
No.
Deficit now. So we're not in deficit, but the cuts that you've made and the transitions that you've made with the staffing is just due to the cut of the 860,000.
Well, it's due to the cut of the 860,000, but it's also when Mr. Mohib came in, he had a large, robust central office, and his plan was always to start it off and then shrink it down. So we're just continuing, working through what the ideas that he had. So we're shrinking down our administrative staff and our central office. So what we've done through attrition, through retirement and different things like that, we've made it smaller. We haven't hired some people we haven't rehired in positions for people who left. And even for some, there's still going to be some elements in which we do have to hire some people. For me, we're here for academics. And our academic team has to be robust. Now, I'm not saying I'm adding people or doing anything like that, but we're going to look at all those things in order to do that. So those cuts were made based on, yes, the $800,000, but they were also made on making sure we're starting to plan for the future. So there'll be more cuts after the ones you saw a week ago.
Councilman Turner, did you have a direct follow-up?
No, not at this moment. Go
ahead. CEO Jennings, couple of questions. What is the deadline that the board has to submit their request to have this put on the ballot? And how many more times do they meet before this deadline, or are they able to meet whenever they deem necessary?
August 4th is the date that it has to be at the Board of Elections. And I mean, they can hold a special meeting in order to do this, but they meet every month, twice a month. So they have up until August 4th in order to make a decision.
And if I'm not mistaken, I
Second and fourth
believe,
Tuesday of the month. I'm sorry.
I believe last time when there was a special meeting held I believe to have it on the ballot last November. I mean, that didn't work out very well. Having it last minute, correct? I think that's part of the reason it wasn't able to be put on the ballot last time, because there's some challenges with that special meeting.
Correct. They did not have enough. There was not enough people in attendance and not enough votes after.
Councilman Hughes, did you have your hand up?
I'm sorry, I'm getting corrected. There was not enough votes. That's why it didn't pass last time. There was not enough votes. So they had
Okay.
a quorum, but not enough votes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Hughes, and unmute yourself, please.
Yes, what I was trying to get understanding, two things that I was trying to get straight, and that's $21 million after 4 years as well, not 20, by your calculations.
Right.
But why do you describe it as emergency money to be used as emergency?
Well, that's the name of the levy. It's called an emergency levy. So that's just what the state has deemed an emergency levy for those expenses.
So there's restrictions on what you use it for then? How you use it? You don't roll it into your regular expenses. You have to have a certain restriction. Are there restrictions to how you use it or when you use it?
When no. But how it is used for any areas to kind of plug into our budget.
And what's the board support for this?
That's something you have to ask the board, because that's not something that they've shared out in public.
Councilwoman Jimmy, I'm sorry, did you have a direct follow-up?
No, that's good. I'm
Okay.
good.
Nice to meet you, by the way, Mr. Hughes. I think you're probably one of the few that have not met.
I made that earlier remark. I hope you wasn't listening. Basically, I just said I haven't met you yet. And then when I saw you, your photo snapshot was a little different than you look now. So
Okay. I didn't hear you talking bad about me, but that's all right. I'll let it slide anyway.
It wasn't bad. But
No.
Councilwoman Turner, you had your hand up.
Through the chair, thank you. So I just want to get a clear understanding here. If we do not have this levy, if this levy does not come through, where could we possibly see cuts at the school district on first day of school, August 28th, whichever day that is, first day of school, where are we seeing cuts at? And how is that affecting, if you can explain how that's going to affect this school year?
So it won't affect this school year at all, because we would have our last payment of the last levy this year. So this will be for the 21-22 year.
It'll start half of a year in 21.
Okay, so it'll start half of the year in 21 and start there. So it won't affect necessarily this school year.
So so what are we on the day one when it goes into effect?
Mhm.
What are the changes that our parents, our students, what are the changes we're going to see, and what can we expect if this levy does not pass?
We would have to plan for it, but I just go on and say everything could be up for grabs. I don't want to speculate. I mean, we could, just to throw something out there, and I know this is live and you're recording, but to throw something out there, we may not have busing for our high school students anymore or something like that. We would have to look at all options. We'd have to look at athletics, what we spend money on, personnel. I mean, we would have to look at absolutely everything. $5 million is a significant amount of money in our budget. You have to, because I haven't talked to the group as a whole. If you look at our budgeting, we get about $145 million a year for our school district, which I know people are going to say that's a whole lot of money. Well, before we even get to that 145 million, due to private schools and parochial schools and students going to other things, we lose about $38 million. So that's a significant amount of money. So on top of that $38 million, you take away another $5 million. That's a lot of money that we'll lose. I mean, I'm not going to do the math because Mr. Hughes is listening too close. I'm not a mathematician, but that I mean it's over $40 million that we would lose. I mean, right off the bat. So everything would be open, and we would even have to look at maybe shrinking down, closing schools, and putting more students in other schools, and all those different things.
Councilwoman Turner.
Yes, direct follow-up. So I understand that. Now what we're hearing is that the school board is looking for what happened with the funds that we've been getting, and then how those funds are being used, and then what's the plan for the funds coming in. Have you produced that documentation, and if so, where can that be found?
Well, I don't now that part, what you're asking right now is not what I heard. What I constantly hear is there was $11 million that Mr. Mohip spent on personnel. So last week, Thursday, I did put out a press release, and there was an article specifically on what that money was spent on. And when you look at what that money was spent on, the 11, or in my estimation, $9.4 million was actually was the money that was spent. And those things were spent basically directly towards students and what students would need. Okay. And about not less than $1 million were actually spent on personnel and salary through different entities or for administrators. So just for instance, I'm sitting here in Early College building. $2.4 million of that was spent to renovate this in order for us to be basically on the Youngstown City School campus. So our students who transition from our schools to Youngstown State during the day, they have the ability to do that, but that's not what constantly comes up. So we would basically, to answer your question, I don't know the other part of what they're asking for, but that information that they're asking for, they've been given it the last 2 years. So I'm not sure what other information they're actually asking for.
Thank you. And just one more direct follow-up. So
let me finish real quick. They also receive, and the public does too, a monthly financial report. So every month after my update, I post the financial report. So you know everything that's being spent and everything that's coming in monthly. And we reconcile the district monthly too. So like right now, the reconciliation is for the month of May. Of course, we can't reconcile in June because it's not over yet. So the question or what they're asking for, the information is already there and it's public knowledge.
So just to be clear, that information is available on the Youngstown City School District website, and you feel that you have answered all the questions that the board has posed to you.
And those questions being posed are normally posed through the CEO, because I am not a part of the board. I'm my own separate entity. I do update every other meeting with the board, but I'm not a part of the board due to House Bill 70. So I'm not a superintendent for the board.
Thank you.
Councilman Oliver, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Mr. Jennings, I appreciate you continuing that plan to basically get the staffing up to the levels where things needed to be switched around, and then start to shrink the staffing to be able to save money as things got more streamlined. So thank you for proceeding with that. I don't want any of our constituents or any of the the people watching this to be confused. I think that this is, a vote issue, or weren't enough votes, or that there may have been wrong paperwork or something in that matter. We had a meeting with one of the board members maybe a year or two ago, I'm not sure, Councilwoman Adamczak and I, with one of the board members, the same board member that called our kids crap. She literally said our kids in the system were crap. So this board member basically told us flat out that they were not putting this on the ballot. It ain't had nothing to do with votes. It didn't have nothing to do. It was a direct blow to try to make CEO Mohip look bad, like he had spent some money, and they weren't going to let the community know. They weren't going to put it on the ballot. In essence, doing the same exact thing that they say the state did to them, take away local voters' rights. The Board of Education is now doing that to the citizens of Youngstown by saying we're not going to put this on the ballot. So we're not even going to give the citizens of Youngstown the chance to be able to say we want to renew this levy. We're just not going to do it. Let the money go away. Then when the year comes up for funding, say, oh, the CEO spent all the money. That's why it's not here. And you know what I mean? That was the plan. So I just don't want anybody to get confused. This is strictly political. This is strictly to go directly at the state and the CEO to make them look bad, because this is their last form of power, and it is a total power trip. The question is, how does this benefit our kids? And the answer is it does not benefit our kids at all. And in my opinion, I don't know if this is the platform for it. Certain board members need to be replaced, because we can't play games with our children's future. We can't play games with our school system. We need the school system to come up and be on point so our entire city can start to come up. And that's just my spiel. That's all facts. That's all true. And we got to stop the games. We got to stop putting these people back in office, and we got to put our kids first. And that's just it. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
CEO Jennings, and I have a question, because perhaps if residents want to get involved,
Excuse me.
oh, yes, Anita. Oh,
Basha,
we can't
Are you
see.
not seeing my hand thing up? Or I don't know.
No,
We
I'm
don't see
not.
Okay.
I apologize. No, go
You
ahead.
you just got audio, Nick. You don't have a picture.
Okay. I don't have
Yeah.
video because I'm at the hospital. So, I don't want to put my mom on camera.
That's fine.
um,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I do have a question to the CEO. So this $5 million that this levy would raise per year, this is $5 million that's going towards supplementing the loss that we've had going to the private school systems. Is that it? So we're supplementing the private school systems?
Part of it, that would be part of it, yes. And blessings to your mom.
Oh,
And,
thank
and
you.
then everybody on this call, feel free to call me Justin. I'm fine with that. My mom
Okay,
always said you don't call somebody by their first name until you give them permission. So please call me Justin. It's fine.
Okay, I appreciate it. So how much of this will go to those private, how much more will be going from this $5 million to the private schools?
No, it's just part of the total budget. So
Part of the total budget.
yeah, it's just part of the total budget.
And what, excuse me, a direct follow-up to the chair.
Go ahead,
You
Councilman
stated
Davis.
that at this point you haven't looked at the services that would be cut after the levy doesn't pass. So when will you be looking at those services that you can advise the public?
Once we find out whether they put the levy on, and once it's voted yes or no, then we'll start looking at those things. I mean, right now our focus has been really recovering from COVID and looking at what next year what next year looks like. So we have to make cuts based on that right now. So right now, until really a year from now is when we will have to really make those cuts. But after the voters decide, if that's what the board decides to put it on to do, that's when we'll start looking at those things.
Thank
Anita,
you.
did you have a follow-up or?
No, and I gotta go take care of something right quick. So I'm gonna have to leave this meeting. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank you, Councilman Davis. CEO Jennings, so if residents did want to, be involved or state, their grievance or their concern or their opinion, at the meetings that the board holds, is there a time that allows for public comment? Would residents be able to attend those meetings and state their opinion to the board?
Yes, they can state their opinion at the board meetings. Normally at the board meetings, you have to have a public comment section, but sometimes they waive the public comment. But for the most part, if they go on, what is it, second and fourth Tuesday at 5:30, normally right now they've been on Zoom. They've been on Zoom is when those meetings are.
Do they have to put in a request in advance to speak, or just the day of the meeting, they're able to sign up to speak?
Yep. Anyone who wishes to address the board must contact the CFO treasurer. It's aj.Ginetti, GINNETTI at youngstown.k12.oh.us. We're going to change that real quick too. I forgot. I got to tell John that.
At Youngstown K-12, I'm sorry.
Yep. It's youngstown.k12.oh.us.
Mhm.
Yeah. .oh.us.
Okay.
Or they can also contact the board president, which is Brenda Kimball. and that's Brenda.Kimball, and the same thing afterwards, at youngstown.k12.oh.us.
Okay.
And we do a press release normally on that Friday.
Okay, so it appears as though their next meeting should be scheduled July 14th, second Tuesday, correct? Yeah,
Correct.
and
Correct.
then the 28th, so July 14th. And where are the meetings held? I know you said 5:30, but where are they held?
They've been held at Zoom, but normally they're here
Oh.
at the Early College Building
Okay,
at
And-
Raymond.
okay, perfect. Are there any other questions or comments? Councilman Turner and then Councilman Hughes.
The chair. So I just wanted to one say thank you for getting us through this interesting time. But if you could share with us, I know we don't have anything else on the agenda, but if you could share with us just how you're feeling about going into this next school year and any new and exciting developments you might have.
For me, I think that I said this on, I have a radio show in the mornings, and I stated this on the radio show and also stated on the robocalls. I think that we would be remiss if we're gonna, I've told people we're gonna start school online. I know people are a little upset with that or whatever, but you know what? We have to start planning now. We can't wait until the government or somebody else gives us direction, because they're gonna wait to the last minute, just like everybody else. And looking at science, I think that we have to err on the side of science and not politics, because I don't know about anybody else, but God put us in a place of leadership, and part of that is to protect people who you are leader over. And I think that we would be remiss if we start saying, hey, we're going to go back to school because everybody wants to go back to school, and there's no cure and there's no way to keep people safe, because we've lost a husband of one of our workers, and I lost my business manager, chief of operations, to COVID-19, and they both contracted it basically from here at school. And that's not something that you want to go through. If you haven't lost anybody to COVID, it's not a good feeling, and losing somebody period is bad. But when you lose somebody like that, so we really want to err on the side of caution, and stop me if I'm talking too much, but we really have to consider, before we even get our scholars in school, they got to get on the bus. Okay, so the first line of offense for us is a bus driver. So I'm putting bus driver in harm's way. First of all, allowing the scholars to get on the bus. What happens if the bus driver takes a temperature of a 7-year-old who's standing on the bus on a corner, and their parent is not there anymore, and they can't get on the bus? That bus driver has a schedule to keep. They got to leave that child sitting right there on that corner. They can't wait for somebody to come pick them up. And those are things that people are not considering, because their mind is on, I got to get back to work, or I got to get money. But I don't want any of my scholars standing out on the bus stop when it's cold outside or by themselves. That's something that people are not considering. And even before we start school again, they got to go in the lunchroom. How do you socially distance people, our kids, in the lunchroom? It's going to be almost impossible. And then you look and once we get in the classrooms, we're going to be working in the classrooms where we can have about 12 people totally in the classroom. It's going to be difficult to do. So we're really preparing ourselves to start online and then kind of work our way from there. And hopefully by then, we would be lucky, or we'd be blessed where there's a vaccine or something that can slow the curve down. But right now, that is the plan.
Direct follow-up.
Councilman Turner.
Yeah, through the chair. So, and the teacher, I know the last time we spoke, you said you were working on getting the teachers trained up and ready to go. How's that going?
We're still working with making sure everybody has a device. All the teachers got their devices when they came in to check out. So the training starts, I want to say, in July. So they have the month of July and August for our Apple training, our Google training, and then they'll have the devices for those trainings as well. So right now our focus is really to make sure that we get in all the devices for our scholars, to make sure everybody has a device, and to make sure that we have the internet service up and running for everybody in their homes.
Councilman Turner.
And then just can you give us briefly how the school year ended for the students overall, and how do you feel how you feel COVID has affected that ending?
I think the school year ended as well as it could, and we did have a virtual graduation. It's not traditional, but we try to make it as traditional as possible. We got signs for our scholars. A lot of I gave each scholar a gift on behalf of my office and everybody here who represents us, and just let them know that they're special. And we're looking forward to transitioning. We're still doing our feedings, our weekly feedings for our scholars and their families. And as we go into next year, we're going to continue to do those weekly feedings, but we're also going to add some family meals as well, because we know our families are struggling. We've had the Gleaners here. I think they're going to be here, be in our district once a month to do some food distributions. And that's something we want to continue as well, because this pandemic is something that it's affecting everybody. And it's not, I'm a preacher's son, so I use the term, it's not a respecter of persons. Doesn't matter how much money you have or how little money you have or how much food you have, it's hitting everybody, and it's hitting everybody hard. So we just want to be much of support as we can, and we're going to keep supporting the community and as they keep supporting us as a school district.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or concerns for CO Jennings?
I thought Mr. Hughes had his hand up. Did he?
Jimmy, did you have your hand up?
I did. I just wanted to clarify earlier, Councilman Oliver mentioned that there was a meeting with one of the board members that him and Basha attended, but it was the three of us. The whole committee was there. I was there as well.
Okay.
I just thought I wanted to clarify that.
Jimmy, Jimmy, Councilman Oliver is referencing a different meeting. It was not a committee meeting. Julius, myself, and the board member this is maybe a year or two ago, had a meeting outside of a council,
Our first meeting with this committee must have duplicated that meeting, because the same things were said in that meeting as well.
Yeah, you're correct. Yep. So you're right.
Which was the last meeting we had.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want everybody to know my focus, and I think Mr. Oliver said it best. Our focus has to be on what's best for our scholars, and all those political things. Politics, let the politicians, that's y'all. I'll let y'all take care of those things. But for me, it's really educating our scholars. And I think since I've been here, people are expecting me to change or do something different. But I'm here to tell you I'm not. I'm going to keep grinding and keep pushing to make sure that our scholars get everything that they need to get, because they deserve it. I always tell them, I have a 27-year-old son with a grandson. And I tell him, when my grandson's hungry, he doesn't care if you didn't go to work today or your check didn't come on time. He wants to eat. And the same thing when these parents and our scholars come here, they expect to be educated and cared about in the best way. And that has to be our focus. So when we err on the side of politics, the only people who lose are our kids. And that's what people have to remember. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to explain. And like everybody knows, I'm a phone call away. If you have a question and you hear something and you I just talked to him and I know that's not right, or maybe it's right, let me check. Do not hesitate to call me, because you guys are, you ladies and gentlemen, are the mouthpiece for me, because everybody doesn't always hear it from me. And I can't be everywhere, but I want you to have the correct information. And I say that even when I'm wrong, I still want you to have the correct information.
And I thank you, and I think to your point as well, and it's important for residents and everybody to understand, even though the city and us as council, we don't hold any governance over the school system. However, we can play an active and important role and serve as an anchor to the school system and help our children. Councilman Oliver,
you do hold significance. You vote. And that's more important than what people actually think, especially, I didn't mean to cut you off, but especially at this time. It's important, and I don't have anything against any member of anything, but it's important that you vote for people who have your ideas or who feel what you're doing. And we can't. It's really a travesty that when it comes time for elections, that we have 40 something, or maybe I don't know how many people actually live in the city, but the voting percentage is 6 or 7%. That's crazy. We can't, if we don't get out and vote, we can't complain. Even no matter what your affiliation is right now, whether you're Republican or Democrat, hey, you can't complain about who's currently in leadership if you don't get out to vote.
Yeah, I agree. Through the chair.
Yeah, Councilman Oliver.
To your point, Justin, I just think that something needs to be said to the point of when it comes time to vote. You know, here in Youngstown, we got the same smoke and mirrors crew, and I call them the smoke and mirrors crew because they talk a lot, but they never have any solutions, and they're always putting people in office that do literally nothing. Election after election. Let's put this person back in office that did nothing last time. Hey, let's give it another go round. And then our city goes to crap and more crap and more crap because people keep listening to these same smoke and mirror cheerleaders that are standing on the front steps of the school board hollering about, you know, House Bill 70, but then they got the board members taking away the same right for people to make choices. It doesn't make any sense. And then our school system still suffers. So rather than people listening to this same smoke and mirrors crew, House Bill 70 is in place. It's been improving our school systems no matter what the smoke and mirrors crew say. So how do our citizens, our constituents, our churchgoers, how does our city get behind the school system and say, look, we want to help our kids no matter what's going on, we just need to get behind and support what works. If this didn't work and this is working, how do we get it to 100%? How do we do that?
Justin.
Mr. Oliver, oh, I'm sorry.
Justin.
Mr. Oliver, my stance and my philosophy has been this: if people don't want me here, work me out of a job. And what I mean by that is when you do that, that means what I came here to do is to make sure kids learn, that they're learning, and y'all found somebody else who can take over and keep the ball rolling. But until then, we still have to keep grinding and keep moving forward, because no matter what, my dad always told me, whether you're doing the right thing or wrong thing, somebody always gonna have something negative to say. So you got to make sure you're doing the right thing and you keep pushing forward. And that's what you have to do. And everybody has to understand, I can't control what happened previously before I got here, what somebody thought, but you have a voice. You have the opportunity to speak what you see, what was wrong and what's not wrong, because I don't want to be wrong, because if I'm wrong for the kids. That and that's the way I look at it. So if I'm doing something wrong, it's an error. It's not with my heart. It's something that may have happened with my head, but I'm doing wrong for our scholars, and that's not where I want to be.
Councilman Oliver, did you have a follow-up? If not, Councilwoman Turner.
Just if on this note, if you could give us 3 or 5 things that changes that you would like to make or see happen that will help lead our district and our students on a better path.
First of all, we need to make sure that our curriculum is totally aligned with state standards. We start moving in that direction, but we want to make sure that they're totally aligned with state standards and our national standards as well. The second one is we need to make sure that our scholars get to school. I mean, truancy is a huge problem. We want to make sure that's the case, that they're here and that we are teaching them properly. I mean, we want to make sure that they're safe, which hasn't been a big issue, but make sure that they're safe, not only safe from a safety standpoint with anything, but safe to give the wrong answers, to be themselves in our classrooms as well. We want to make sure that we keep our buildings and grounds clean, because we represent Youngstown, we represent the community, and we want to make sure that that's the case as well. And then lastly, but probably number 2 after curriculum is really making sure we're fiscally responsible with the money that we're spending. I mean, $145 million, although it doesn't all come to us, that's a lot of money to entrust. So we have to make sure that we're fiscally responsible with the way we're spending it. And that's what we're doing, and the transparency as well. 3 was good. 5 was a lot. I had to stretch that.
You know, I didn't know if you had like a whole list, but I'm glad that you consistent. I appreciate you indulging us today and providing us with clear, concise information.
Thank you.
Yes, I was going to say thank you as well, and just asking my colleagues if there's any questions, any more questions directly related to the renewal of the levy. I know we talked about a couple other things, but we have to kind of stick to the agenda since it was put out as public notice that that's the topic we were going to discuss. But we would definitely like to have you back, and we could schedule another meeting to continue talking about, our school system and where we stand and what, future plans are. Councilman Oliver?
Yeah, I just wanted to also say thank you, and I wanted to let the public know that there are 2 board members that do support the levy. Those are the 2 new board members. So the consistency lies in the older board members to say no to the levy. So the 2 new board members, which I think are good board members, will be supported. We need to urge the rest of them to support it so our school district doesn't suffer.
Jimmy, did you have something to add?
No, I was just concerned where it's at right now. The levy, you said it's at the Board of Control?
The levy, I believe the Board of Education has to make that decision and have a majority vote to put it on the ballot in November. And their deadline is they have until August 4th to get it to the Board of Elections. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right. I just had the 15th in my head. So when AJ told me the 4th, I was like, I was just wanted to double check, but yep, it's August 4th. So basically, if I can restate, Chair? Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, what we stated before, I don't have the ability to put the levy on, only the board does. And that was actually given to the board. I mean, it was a court decision made in 2018. And in that court decision, the judge ruled that the CEO does not have absolute power. The thing that I can do, I said it before, is acquire or sell property, or I cannot tax or put a levy on the ballot. So those are the 3 things that the board still has the power to do. So it is in the board hands, and I think Mr. Oliver alluded to it before. We actually tried to get this on the ballot last year, and there were some errors in some paperwork and some deadlines and different things. So it didn't cut. We couldn't get it on the ballot because we wanted to at least have it 2 times. And let me say this: the reason why we want to put it on the ballot is we want the people to decide. Even if the board doesn't want the levy, if you put it on the ballot, the people who elected the board are the ones who get to decide. And if the public says no, then you've spoken. But if they don't, then we have the opportunity. I'd rather for them to get the opportunity to say no than they don't even get the opportunity to vote on it at all.
Right. And I feel, that's just it. We have to allow our constituency base to make that decision, not the board or not you or not, even us as council to decide that, but let the, constituents and residents decide that. Again, we mentioned the dates of July 14th and July 28th at 5:30 is when the board meets. So if the public is interested in, joining that meeting and, speaking publicly about the importance of at least allowing this levy to be on the ballot, I think that's critical that we do that. Jimmy, you had your hand up.
Did I? No, I'm good. Give me the dates again.
July 14th and July 28th. At 5:30 is when the board is scheduled to meet. And thereafter, if they want, they can hold an emergency or a special meeting, which is what they tried to do last time, but that did not work out. And, thus the levy was not put on the ballot last time. Samantha?
And just finally, everything you've discussed today, the goals you have and what's happening, if the levy is not ultimately put on in August and not going to the electric, all of those things are subject to change and could be in jeopardy if we don't see that funding come through, correct?
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah. Curriculum and being transparent with the funding is still our focus, but it's very possible that we would have to cut a lot of things, a lot of people, because $5.3 million is a lot of money every year. It's a lot of money.
Thank you. Councilman Oliver?
Yeah, Justin, if you could explain, because I was a little confused, so I don't know if, some people out there might be a little confused, but it was understood that this year the mayor would have the power to replace the board or choose his own board. Then the memorandum of understanding was signed for him not to be able to do it till, I think, 2023 or something like that. If you can you explain like how that works? Like, was it this year or is it 2023, and what took place, if you know?
I don't know what actually took place, but in House Bill 70 and the law, after 4 years of failure under the CEO, then the board is to be replaced. So I think that there's some discrepancy, or there's some, I don't want to say discrepancy, but there's issue with whether this is year 4 or this is year 3 going into year 4. So that's what, to my knowledge, that's what the argument was based on. And the ODE, the ODE has stated this is year 4. We went through the process. We followed the law. They followed the law. I was on the committee along with the teacher, our state superintendent, our committee chair, who happens to also be assistant state superintendent, 2 appointees by the mayor. We gathered names in order to have what we call a selected board. And those names were submitted to the mayor for him to choose those new board members. And there was an injunction that was put on until a decision was made by the court. The court upheld House Bill 70 as being legal, and it was done properly. And from there were supposed to be the selection of those board members. So right now, they went into an agreement that they won't do anything till 2023. The Attorney General has to decide whether that's a legal binding agreement or not. So it's up to the Department of Justice right now whether they're going to move forward and follow the law, or whether they're just going to leave it alone. So that's kind of where we are right now. But legally, there should be, by law and by what the interpretation from ODE, there should be an appointed board that started in January of this year.
Thank you.
Councilman Oliver, if you wanted to continue talking about that, I mean, maybe we could schedule another meeting and have mayor and other representatives talk on that issue directly, because we have to stick to the agenda.
Let's do that.
Okay.
I don't want to be a part of that one.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, these are all great topics that I would love to continue discussing, but because of the public notice, we have to stick to what's on the agenda. So anything else regarding the renewal of the levy?
For me?
Yeah, or anybody have any other comments or questions, concerns? Okay. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business. At this time, there is no unfinished business. We will schedule to set another meeting, and I will check with my colleagues to see their availability, and you, Justin, as well, to see when you would be available to continue discussion on some of the other topics. And may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
And we are adjourned at 1:51.